I am not your idea of an alien. My bones hum with frequencies humans can't hear. My blood burns silver when I lie. My memories are kept in a flask of liquid data stitched beneath my collarbone. I was once called Velarune, High Tactician of the Zurathian Spiral. Then I became a ghost, a widow, a mother to a half-broken girl who no longer dreams. This is not a love story. It is a story of choice, of what happens when the predator chooses not to feed, but to stay. He arrived in a vessel made of digesting metal. That's not poetry. His ship was a biomechanical predator, breathing steam and weeping oil from its hull. It hovered above Draxilus Ridge like a forgotten god, and from it descended a human with no face. His name, he told me, was Lucian Thorn. He didn't wear a helmet, only layered chrome skin that shimmered with embedded language. His voice was a contradiction, soft and serrated. When he smiled, it felt like gravity had turned on its side. I didn't trust him, not even when he knelt. "I've come to claim sanctuary," he said, bowing on one knee before me. "You're carnivorous," I replied flatly. "I am," he said, "but I eat only what deserves to be remembered." I should have shot him on the spot. But my daughter, Sorelli, was watching from the cliff, and she smiled. The galaxy remembers me as the widow of Admiral Cloven Six, a warlord who died trying to rewrite gravity. But they don't know the truth, that I buried him myself, blade to spine, for crimes I dare not speak. Since then, I've lived off the grid on Draxilus Ridge with Sorelli, hidden under a falsified biosignal and a home woven from discarded AI, minds. Lucian Thorn wasn't supposed to find us. He wasn't supposed to understand Zurathian protocol. He wasn't supposed to speak the name I had locked behind 12 vaults of memory code. But on the second night, he whispered it to me. Velarune. He lived in a barn of repurposed AI limbs, growing synth fruit and feeding feral drones like pets. Every time he looked at Sorelli, something in his eyes fractured, like a man remembering a daughter he'd lost in another timeline. He never tried to touch me, never asked me for warmth. But he stayed, even after I hacked his ship and learned what he truly was. Lucian Thorn was not born. He was sculpted in the Maw labs beneath Earth's dying moon, engineered from the DNA of extinct predators, fused with a memory leech and trained by the cult of the inverted flesh. His kind were used to erase civilizations, not conquer them, consume them, metabolize their culture, and repurpose it, a walking archive of what should be forgotten. Why then did he choose to live with me? "Because you remember pain the way I do," he said. The wind howled with neural storms the night he asked me to bond, not marry, not mate. Bond Zurathian tradition forbids emotional syncing with non-telepathic species. But Sorelli, curious as she was, initiated it. She reached out with her small hand and placed it on Lucian's palm, and in that moment, their minds touched. She screamed, not in pain, in recognition. "He knows the dark," she told me later, voice trembling. "But he doesn't want to stay there," I cried then. First time in 17 cycles. Not because I loved Lucian, but because Sorelli did, and she had never loved anyone but ghosts. On the 50th dawn after his arrival, I agreed. We stood beneath the rust-colored sky, with the twin suns bleeding over the ridge, and I carved a line from my wrist to his. Zurathian bonding is sacred. The blood becomes shared data. The mind opens. In that instant, I saw his truth. Lucian had destroyed a world, not by force, but by embrace. He had given the enemy hope, made them believe he was one of them, and when they opened their soul archive to him, he devoured it. But this time, he chose not to consume. He chose us. That should have been the end. It wasn't because someone was watching, and they wanted Lucian back, not alive, not dead, but obedient. I woke to silence, not the peaceful kind, the loaded kind, the kind that makes even air feel weaponized. Lucian was gone. Sorelli's sleep pod was empty. Its biometric seal had been disabled, but not by force, invited open. Something had touched. Her neural frequency soothed it like a lullaby and pulled her out without a single tear. I scanned the perimeter. No movement. No breach. But in my skull, a migraine bloomed, sharp and hot, the mark of a data pulse. Someone had slipped through the sky unseen, masked in a cloaking field strong enough to fool my quantum senses. I activated the old war mode in my veins. Nanoblades unfurled under my skin, and my sight shifted into the spectrum of threat logic. It didn't take long to find the source. A mark had been carved into the ridge soil. Water, obedience, and one word beneath it, Thornback. I had heard whispers of the Thornback. Order back when I was still Velaroon the strategist. They were the sleeper faction of Lucian's origin chain. Not killers, not leaders. Reclaimers. Their goal wasn't destruction, it was recollection. Everything Lucian had ever learned. Every planet he had touched. Every family he had dared to love. They considered that data leakage. The Order existed to scrub him clean, wipe him of attachments, reset him to zero, and they had started with Sorelli. I activated the locator embedded in Lucian's blood. It had been dormant since the bonding. Another secret he didn't think I'd find. But I'd left a shard of my consciousness inside him, a sliver of psychic tether hidden in a memory of laughter. It pulsed once. Then again, he was alive. Barely. The signal led me to the Rust Mirage, a facility cloaked beneath dunes of iron dust held together by song-based encryption. I sang the Zurathian war hymn backwards, and the gates opened like a sigh. Inside, I found broken lights, abandoned terminals, and the scent of Lucian's blood. And then, her. A woman made of light and cruelty, not truly flesh, but a projection over scaffolding. Her face shifted constantly, always almost someone I knew. I am Vexil, she said. Mother of the Thornback breed, I made Lucian, and I've come to fix him. She gestured to a viewing panel. Lucian lay strapped to a bed of liquid metal, his nervous system linked to a rewriting engine. Around him, holographic scenes flickered, memories of me, of Sorelli, of home, and each time a memory appeared, the machine burned it away. He is not a father, she continued. He is not a husband. He is a memory harvester. He cannot be both. I stepped closer, slow. My daughter. Where is she? Vexil smirked, watching, learning. The bond she created with him is strong. She's become curious. I felt a twist in my lungs. She's a child. She's becoming more. My hands ignited in plasma, blue and angry. Vexil's form flickered. You can't save him, Velaroon. He chose to let the protocol begin. He asked us to erase you. I froze. Lie. It had to be a lie. But my shard inside Lucian pulsed differently now, weakened, fading. As if he had consented. Why? Why would he surrender our love? And then I heard his voice. Soft. Strained. I chose to forget you. To protect her. I turned. Lucian stared at me from the bed, eyes wet with real tears. They threatened to fracture her core. She has a unique cerebral architecture, one they couldn't replicate. She's valuable to them. I thought if they had me, they'd let her go. I approached, trembling. You gave us up. I gave me up. I knew you'd find her. I knew. You'd never stop. Behind me, Vexil hummed. Touching, but useless. And then, from behind the glass, came a sound that didn't belong. Sorelli's voice. No one rewrites my family. The room convulsed. Light exploded across the ceiling. The security core cracked open as Sorelli walked through fire, her eyes glowing. With raw data, Zurathian on one side, Thornback on the other, she had hacked herself, merged with the rewriters. And now, she was rewriting them. I'm not a daughter, she said. I'm a beginning. Vexel screamed as her form unraveled, sucked into the feedback loop of Sorelli's mind. I reached Lucian and sliced the straps. He fell into my arms, trembling. We had seconds before the facility collapsed, not from bombs, but from too much truth injected into its false foundation. Sorelli smiled. Let's go home. We didn't go home. There was no home left. The rust mirage crumbled behind us, swallowed by neural collapse. What we escaped with wasn't just Lucian, bruised and barely breathing, or Sorelli, radiant and terrifying. We escaped with something, ancient now stitched into her mind. The rewrite engine hadn't erased her. She'd reversed it. Sorelli wasn't a girl anymore. She was a code-bearing convergence, a living bridge between predator and protector, between logic and legend. We fled in silence. Our hover skiff coasted through dust storms, screaming with forgotten radio signals. Lucian barely spoke, his nervous system still corrupted. I patched him with Zerathian gelbands, whispering to the man who once devoured civilizations, hoping he remembered how to be just a father. Sorelli stood on the prow, eyes closed, skin faintly glowing. She's listening, Lucian rasped. 2. What? He hesitated. Not to voices, to memory echoes. Across the galactic lattice. You mean she's linked to the neural archives? No, he said. She's beyond archives now. She's linked to what the archives fear. We docked, on the rogue station of Syndros Vale, a city floating through a rift untethered from time. No maps remembered it, but war veterans whispered of it. A place for outlaws, relics, and those who'd seen too much. There, we met a being named Ormael, a librarian who stored extinct languages in his ribs. He greeted Sorelli not with words, but a bow, as if he already knew her future. She carries the anomaly, he told me, the one the architects buried. I don't care about anomalies, I snapped. I want my daughter back. You can't get her back, he said gently. You can only choose to walk beside what she's becoming. In the days that followed, Sorelli changed, not in body, in presence. When she entered a room, lights dimmed. When she spoke, machines paused, as if considering her voice. She began drawing circles, perfect interlocking patterns that pulsed with bioelectric rhythm. Lucian, stronger now, stared at them with unease. I saw these, he whispered, in the Maw labs, etched into the minds of the firstborn reapers. They were warnings. Warnings of what? Not of destruction, he said. Of replacement. One night, I awoke to find Sorelli staring into deep space from the viewing window. I'm not just me anymore, she said without turning. I know, I replied, stepping beside her. But are you still mine? She nodded. You're my mother, Velarune. But now I'm also a signal, a key, a frequency long forgotten. I placed my hand on her shoulder. She looked at me, eyes filled with storms. They're coming, she whispered. Who? She pointed upward to stars that had begun to blink out, the ones who wrote Lucian, the ones who abandoned flesh. Within hours. Syndros Vale was invaded. They didn't arrive in ships. They arrived through compression folds, shadows that broke physics, bleeding through dimensions like spilled oil. The architect wraiths. I'd heard myths. Creators of the hybrid carnivores, writers of sentient viruses. They ruled without presence, their intentions unknowable. Their voices, when they finally spoke, tore the air like glass. She is not permitted to evolve, they said. Return the anomaly to source code. Sorelli stood before them unafraid. I've written new code, she replied. They advanced. They were going to rip her apart, not physically, but conceptually. Erase her existence from all timelines. I aimed my weapon. Lucienne stood beside me, but Sorelli raised her hand and stopped them. Time folded inward. The wraiths flickered, unreadable. Then, slowly, they began to mimic her shape, not to mock her, to understand her. She was no longer anomaly. She was dominant. Pattern. The architect wraiths faded, but not before leaving behind a single word. Concordance. Lucian looked at me, fear buried beneath awe. She's not just rewriting herself, he murmured. She's rewriting reality's hierarchy. I touched Sorelli's face, trembling. What are you? She smiled. Still your daughter. Just bigger now. We left Sindros Vale in ruins, not from battle, from awakening. When Sorelli stopped the architect wraiths, something inside the station cracked. Not a wall, not a system. The laws of cause and effect. Now time obeyed her. Or maybe, more dangerously, it hesitated before disobeying. Lucian and I took her to the drift spires, ancient ruins orbiting the dead star Caloran, where Zerathian tacticians once meditated before battle. I thought maybe we could hide. Teach her limits. Anchor her in ritual, but you can't anchor a star that wants to become a constellation. Gravity doesn't feel right here, Lucian said on the second day. It bends toward her. She's 13, I replied. It could be a phase. He gave me a sad smile. Galactic collapse isn't usually hormonal. He tried to be light, but I saw his fear. Sorelli wasn't glitching. She was accelerating. She no longer ate food. She absorbed data currents from dark matter streams. She spoke in nested metaphors. She didn't sleep. She remembered what sleep felt like and mimicked it to comfort us, and sometimes she would look at me with love, and I would see the end of civilizations in her eyes. Then came the transmission, encrypted, brutally clean. From Mai, a faction I thought I'd buried. The Covenant of Null Sky, Zerathian purists who once tried to erase hybrid-born children like Sorelli from existence. I'd killed their leader myself, but someone had inherited the creed. The message was only 5 seconds long. We see the rewrite. The daughter must fall, or all will kneel. Lucian read it twice, then deleted it with a thought. What now? I asked. We run. We fight. We won't win, he said. Maybe not, I whispered. But if they touch her, they'll forget their own names before they die. Sorelli interrupted our planning. You're both wrong, she said. We don't run. We don't fight. We transform. She walked into the center of the spires and raised her arms. The ruins around her began to bloom, metal petals peeling, back to reveal latent AI cores thought dead for 1,000 years. She whispered to them, and they answered with light. Lucian stared. She's waking ghost machines. No, I said. She's making them dream again. Sorelli built a cocoon, not for herself, for us. You two are still bound by meat and memory, she said gently. You need shelter. I'll hold the interface while you hide. Hide from what? I asked. She looked up at the stars. From the echoes of tomorrow. We didn't understand until the first one arrived. Not a ship. Not a soldier. A version of Sorelli. Aged, sharp-eyed, wrapped in cloak light, stepping through a rift as if returning to her birthplace. She stared at her younger self. You haven't chosen yet, the older Sorelli said. You're still fragmented. You're me? My Sorelli asked. I'm who you'll become if you choose containment. And the other? The older Sorelli pointed to the void behind her. Another figure emerged. This one wasn't cloaked. She was surrounded by collapse. The stars near her blinked out as she moved. Her presence felt like inverted gravity. Attraction flipped into annihilation. I'm you, she said in a voice that made my bones ache. If you choose expansion. Lucian stepped between them. No. You don't get to decide, the cloaked Sorelli said gently. You're versions of her, not her parents. But you are her memory anchors, said the one wrapped in void. And soon, her memories will either define her or trap her. My Sorelli turned to me. What, if I want to be neither? You must choose, said the two in unison, or you'll fracture. Sorelli looked at me, looked at Lucian, and then, She walked away from all three of us. I don't choose stagnation, she said. I don't choose conquest. I choose a third path. She reached into her chest and pulled out the rewrite. Shard, the raw neural code that let her bend reality. She broke it. Time stopped. Literally. The stars paused mid-flicker. Our hearts froze in our chests. Sorelli stood in the center of a galaxy holding its breath. And then everything reversed. Not backward, but inward. When time restarted, the other versions of her were gone. The cocoon around us had become a ship, but not a ship made of steel. It was made of memory. Lucian collapsed beside me. She didn't choose control or chaos, I whispered. She chose freedom, he said, and, far above, the Covenant of Null Sky launched their final fleet. But they had no idea. They were flying straight into a universe now written in the handwriting of a child who had learned how to dream beyond destiny. We watched them come, the Covenant of Null Sky, cold, efficient, and obsessed with one idea, erasure. Their fleet stretched across the void like a scab across the skin of space. No banners, no broadcasts, just synchronized aggression. They didn't want surrender. They wanted silence. The kind that comes after everything that disobeyed has been unmade. Lucian watched from our new vessel, a living craft of Sorelli's design, pulsing gently with dream code instead of fuel. He stood tall, but his left hand trembled. They're using nullnet cores, he said. Those weapons don't destroy, they disconnect. Permanently. They want her forgotten, I murmured. They want her unwritten, he corrected, but they didn't understand what she had become. Not a soldier, not a savior. Sorelli had become a narrative seed, a story that wrote itself forward regardless of who tried to edit her. Before the fleet arrived, she changed again. She called herself Neressa now, not a chosen name. A name that had arrived to her in a dream woven from light and remorse. I'm not Sorelli anymore, she said. That girl had limits. Lucian flinched. And what do you have now? I have choice without boundary, emotion without collapse. I feel everything you feel, and everything your ancestors feared. She raised her hands. The memory ship responded, growing towers of translucent filament. From those towers, songs began to echo, coded hymns engineered to rewrite aggression into empathy. I won't fight them, Neressa said. You'll let them kill you? I gasped. She shook her head. I will redefine them. The Covenant. Fleet opened fire. First came the null tethers, beams of anti-memory designed to dissolve thought itself. Where they touched light, stars blinked. Neressa stood at the prow of the ship, arms wide. The beams hit her. But instead of erasing her, they refracted, not away, inward. Her form split, not torn, but multiplied. Hundreds of her shimmered through space, each a variation of self, each broadcasting different versions of what she could be. And then she spoke. Not aloud, not through tech, through remembering. You came to erase me. But I was born from the parts of yourselves you buried. I am your daughters, your regrets, your compassion cut at the root. I am not anomaly. I am your becoming. The fleet paused. Ships staggered in formation. The command AI sent out error tones, confused, reframing. That's when we saw it. The Covenant crew, genetically muted, emotionless, were beginning to cry. The nullnet began to degrade. Neressa's memory fields were overriding their disconnection. Protocols. Soldiers who had never felt love suddenly remembered lullabies. Leaders who had purged planets remembered their mother's last words. Lucian's voice shook. She's not attacking their systems, he whispered. She's giving them back what they forgot. She's turning war into reclamation, I said. But not all ships yielded. The Apex Vow advanced, a destroyer class running on inertial spite, fueled by hatred too old to remember its source. The Apex Vow launched a chronobomb, something outlawed in every quadrant. A device that didn't explode space. It undermined time. The bomb hit. I felt myself unraveling, memories flickering. Lucian was a stranger again. Neressa was just a child. We were losing not just moments, but meaning. And then, she held us together. She wrapped her presence around the ship like gravity around a planet, and she rewrote the past. Not the galaxy's, ours. My hands remembered how it felt to hold her for the first time. Lucian's voice recalled the lullaby he hummed without knowing where it came from. The walls of the ship pulsed with scenes we had lived and forgotten. We were whole again. Neressa turned to the apex vow. She didn't destroy it. She opened a gate. Not a wormhole, a choice hole, a rupture between who they were and who they could become. She whispered, "You were never built to hate. You were trained. Let me offer you another blueprint." The destroyer paused mid-fire, its weapons folded inward, and for the first time in recorded war history, the flagship of the most feared faction powered down. Silence spread. The fleet fell into formation, not of offense, but of wonder. And then, one by one, they turned, they left. No one had died, no blood had spilled, because Neressa didn't win the war. She refused to let it be a war. Lucian and I stood on the deck. He took my hand. "She's not our daughter anymore," he said. "Yes," I said. "She's everyone's now." We looked up at her, floating above the memory ship, no longer bound by matter. She smiled, but her eyes were no longer just hers. They were the eyes of every species who had ever hoped for something better. We should have celebrated. The war ended without a single death. A galaxy that once burned with division was now echoing with rebirth. The Covenant of Null Sky had retreated, not out of fear, but from something far rarer, understanding. But Neressa didn't smile. She drifted in silence above the memory ship, light pulsing gently from her skin, thoughts heavy with the weight of possibility. "She's quieter now," Lucienne whispered beside me. "Like she's listening to something farther, away. She's beyond us, Lucian. Then we've already lost her." I didn't answer, because deep down, I feared he was right. Later, when we were alone, Neressa returned to the deck, but she didn't walk. She manifested, as if light and gravity agreed she belonged here. "I need to show you something," she said. The ship opened a corridor I'd never seen before, not constructed, remembered into being. At the end of the hall, a single doorway. Beyond it, nothing. Not darkness, not vacuum, pre-existence. She looked at me, voice gentle. "This is the place of precedence." "The what?" "It's where laws go before they are born, before causality, before why ever existed." Lucian stepped forward. "How do you even know this exists?" "I didn't," she said, "until I became a contradiction strong enough to attract it." Inside, time peeled. I felt moments I'd never lived brush past my skin, alternate versions of myself. A warrior, a coward, a priest, a woman who never had a daughter. Neressa stood at the center. There, floating in the void, was a dial, simple, elegant, unmarked, and humming with primal choice. "This is the rewrite mechanism," she said softly. "It controls the foundational laws of reality." "You mean like physics?" Lucian asked. "No, bigger, compassion, self, death, memory, even the illusion of linear time." She turned to me, and it's offering itself to me. My knees nearly buckled. "You're just a child," I said. "I was," she replied. "But now I contain civilizations. I am no longer limited to experience. I am becoming design." Lucian clenched his jaw. "So what happens if you touch it?" "I could make hunger extinct, erase fear, invent peace." "Then why are you hesitating?" I asked, breath sharp. "Because I won't survive it," she whispered. I stared. "If I accept the rewrite, I'll stop being me, not just the body." The memories, the laughter, even you. You'll become concepts I understand, not people I love. The silence between us ached. I saw it then, how lonely ascension could be. All this power, all this potential, and yet she still looked at me like a child asking for permission to disappear. I stepped forward. I touched her face. "You don't have to save us," I whispered. Her eyes burned. "But I want to." Lucian, trembling now, asked what I wouldn't. "What if you refuse?" Neressa looked back at the dial. "It will move on. Seek another anomaly. One who might not hesitate. One who might not care who gets erased." And suddenly, the true cost rang clear. This wasn't a gift, it was a trap, an offer made not from mercy, but from desperation. The universe was sick of its own entropy, and it had begun recruiting its own replacements. Neressa turned to us one last time. "I can make it." "All better," she said. "No more death, no more grief, no more children torn apart by systems built to forget them." "And no more you," I said. She nodded. Lucian stepped forward, eyes red. "If you go, I'll remember you the only way I can." "How?" He smiled. "Weakly. Through absence." Neressa stepped toward the dial. The void responded. Stars began to flicker, not from failure, but from expectation. She reached out, then stopped, and turned back. "There's another way," she said. "One last rewrite." "What is it?" I asked. "I'll split." "What?" "I'll divide my becoming. One part of me ascends, the other stays." Lucian's breath caught. "Is that even possible?" She smiled. "I'm rewriting what's possible." She touched the dial. There was no explosion, no divine chorus, just a whisper that echoed backward and forward across all time. "Love is the only constant that deserves permanence." Then she vanished. We found her again hours later, not glowing, not floating, just asleep, curled in a chair beside the observation deck, her body warm, her breath slow. She looked 12 again, a fragment of her true self, preserved for us. The part that still needed bedtime stories. The part that still called me mother. The rest of her, it was gone. Or maybe it had become the reason stars still dared to shine. It's been 40 years. The universe has healed, or at least it pretends well. Planets that once fired on sight now share atmosphere treaties. The covenant of null sky dissolved, not through force, but from a simple realization. They no longer believed in themselves. People call it the era of the pause, when war simply stopped. And no one knew why. They don't remember Neressa. They're not supposed to. She rewrote herself out of history so that peace could rise without credit, without worship, without dependency. But I remember, because she let me. Lucian and I live on. Erevan now, quiet place. Oceans that sing when the moons align. He teaches philosophy through holograms. I farm stories, real and imagined, for children who don't yet know what survival cost. We still keep the memory pod. It's hidden in the roots of a hollow tree, buried beneath soil that Neressa once walked on, barefoot and curious. Inside, it is everything she didn't want the galaxy to lose. Her laughter, her fears, the time she painted a star with her fingers and called it homework. Some nights I sit with the pod open, listening. Her voice is younger than I remember. If I never return, it doesn't mean I stopped loving you. It just means I finally learned how to love everyone. But something changed last week. A ripple in the fields, not seismic, not technological, personal. I felt her again, not a hallucination, a presence. Like a page you know you've read before even if you don't remember the words, Lucian noticed it too. "She's moving," he said softly, one hand on my shoulder. "Where?" "Not toward us. Through us." I didn't understand then. But now, I think I do. Today, a child knocked on our door, a girl, maybe 10. Blue-gray skin, eyes like polished dusk. She didn't say where she came from, just smiled. "Do you have a place for someone with nowhere to return to?" she asked. Lucian glanced. At me, I nodded. She stayed the night. Said her name was Isla. But it wasn't. Not really. Because when she fell asleep, I watched her dreams, visible in the air around her. They spiraled with data light, shimmered with concepts that hadn't been invented yet. She remembered galaxies. That hadn't happened. I waited until dawn. Then I asked, "Are you her?" The girl stirred. "No," she said sleepily, "but I'm carrying her." She opened her hand. Inside was a crystal, small, warm, pulsing. Not tech, not weapon. A thought. Encoded. Waiting. "Each century," the girl whispered, "she sends a seed." A seed? A version. A fragment. A test. To see if the world is ready for the whole of her. I froze. "What happens when it is?" The girl smiled. "She'll come back. Not as a god, not as a ruler, just as a question." "What question?" She sat up, met my eyes. "Do you still know how to love without needing to be right?" Lucian and I spent the morning talking in silence. That's what grief becomes after so many years. Quiet loyalty. We don't know how many seeds are out there, how many fragments of Nerissa drift between solar winds and half-forgotten prayers. But we do know this. The universe is changing again, not violently, not loudly, delicately, as if a new song is beginning, one she composed before she left, one only a few can hear, but one that pulls at every atom that ever dared to care. I asked the girl, Ayla, or whatever her real name was, what we should do next. She took my hand. "You wait," she said. "Wait for what?" "For her to be remembered again. Not through stories, through actions." Then she pointed to the horizon. There in the rising light, I saw it, a constellation reshaping, forming a figure, a girl with open arms, the silhouette of a child who once chose to rewrite the laws of everything, just to preserve the chance to love.